Today's episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Encircle's brand new feature, Floor Plan. With Floor Plan, restorers can actually get same-day floor plans right to their smartphone. It's super easy and literally takes 5 minutes to scan a loss. If you haven't seen it yet, check out getencircle.com/floorplan to get all the details. Hello there. Thanks for checking out another episode of the Restoration Today podcast. I am very excited to be joined by Gokul Padmanabhan from RBA today. He is a dear friend, and I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last few years. He's been very heavily involved in a lot of the M&A transactions that have been happening in the restoration industry for many years, not just recently. He's been involved in the industry for quite a while. But today we're actually not going to focus on M&A. Gokul has learned a lot about businesses and knows a lot about restoration companies, what make them tick, what causes owners to sell and burn out, and kind of how to avoid that, how to better run a restoration company and not have it run you. So that's honestly what we're talking about today. So Gokul, welcome. Thank you for being here. So
thank you. Thanks for having me.
So for people who don't know you, give a quick introduction of who you are and what RBA is.
Okay, so yeah, I'm the founder of Restoration Brokers of America, where we help restoration owners all over the country prepare and exit their companies when the time's right. Mm-hmm. That's what we do in a very high level.
Very high level. Okay, so what's going on in the M&A market right now? Let's kind of lay the ground.
Yeah, so look for a quarterly report coming out in your magazine, hopefully in the next month or two on it. But here are some major themes that we're seeing at the moment, and let me just look at my notes. Interest rates are probably front and center for everybody, especially buyers. The borrowing costs are going up. Okay, so what that's doing is affecting valuations slightly. So if you look at it very quickly, we're seeing two different markets. If your businesses are priced $5 million and under, we're seeing valuations are going down about 9% on the average because the cost of capital is going up for borrowers. Mm-hmm. On the private equity side and the national buyer side, we're not seeing any issues at the moment, but I think it's coming. Okay, they're not immune to it. So I think we're going to see the same effects. I can't tell you exactly when it's going to, but if I'm going to guess, it's probably first or second quarter of next year. It's going to start to affect that market. So interest rates are a big theme. Employment issues. It seems like in our industry, the fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year, we had the claims, we had the jobs, but we didn't have the people to do it. So when we were talking to entrepreneurs all over, we actually paused bringing a lot of companies to the market because sales went down temporarily. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing on the bright side is when you look at April, May, June, July, progressively, these issues have been elevating in the sense they're getting less and less severe. Things are getting more and more back to normal. So that's a major theme. And then the last theme is, as far as buyers go, there's a little bit more flight to quality. So I think, if people are looking to exit, they're really got to prepare and make sure that all their ducks are in a row. Big themes going on right now.
Okay, so what are some of the top reasons that owners are calling you ready to sell?
Yeah, really interesting. Correct. So the number one reason, hands down, been true for a decade, is burnout. Mm-hmm. I'm absolutely burnt out. I'm done. Yep. Right. The second is health. And the third is some kind of life event. Okay. Right. Whether I got to move to be closer to my kids, a passing of a spouse, some big life event that kind of shook him out of entrepreneurship or running a company and said, okay, let me rethink, let me reevaluate. COVID is a life event. That's been, a lot of people are reevaluating what work means, what business means to their life. So those are the big three and has been consistent for a long time.
So out of those owners that call you, how many are calling you saying, I've spent my entire career letting my business run me instead of running my business?
Yeah, so that's what I want to talk about today, right? So let me tell you a story really quickly. About 6 months ago, I had 2 discovery calls. And in our firm, when I do discovery calls, it's that first call I have with a client, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we call it. They were back to back. So the first guy in Kentucky called me and he goes, hey, Gokul, I'm working. My business runs itself. I've got a GM running it. I'm in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm absolutely bored. I want to do something different. I want to get into commercial real estate, so I want to exit. The very next call, and I don't even remember which road I was driving on when I took this call. So it was Friday at 5:30. I got a call from Missouri. And this gentleman goes and he goes, Gokul, I'm absolutely burnt out. I've been working too hard for too long, and I've missed out, and I want out now. And I want to enjoy the next 15, 20 years I got with the things that really matter. So it really got me thinking, and I'm a small business owner, and I think about these same things, right? Am I working too much? Am I working too little? I've got to balance my family, growing the business, health. There's so many other things that we're balancing. So I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and I think there's rules to the game, and I think business is a wonderful tool. Mm-hmm. But I've seen it happen both ways. I've seen it being a blessing in people's lives, and I've seen it absolutely destroy people when I talk to them. I mean, probably the number one regret that people have when they call us in their 60s and 70s, when they're getting close to the career. Number one regret when I start talking to them and really get into their heart, okay, is Gokul, I work for too long, mm-hmm. and I work too hard. Number one regret, I missed the games, I missed the parties, I took too many calls on a Saturday morning, fire loss, water loss, emergency calls. I could have chilled out a little bit. Number one regret that people have. And I started thinking about it personally, and I said, man, I don't want to be there when I'm 65 or 70. Right. Mm-hmm. So when I started researching this, I started to come out, man, they're games, and business is great if it's done right. If it's not, I mean, it could be a blessing or a curse depending on how you play the game.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, totally agree. So I think kind of the start of running your company instead of letting it run you is having a purpose, right? So what does it look like to have a clearly defined purpose for your business? I think a lot of companies get wrapped up in here's our core values, here's our mission statement, here's all that. But I don't know that that's necessarily the purpose of your business for why you founded it and are running it, right?
Yeah. So we were talking about it just before we started recording this, right? So let me bring that in here a little bit, if it's okay with you, right?
Yep. Go ahead.
I think like we are in a culture, I think, as entrepreneurs, and let's climb a mountain, let's run through a wall. Those are great things that make us entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? But if it's left unchecked, it's a double-edged sword for us. Yep. Correct. And we're in this culture where, where it's all business all the time mentality. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that serves us well in life, if you know what I'm saying. So what clarity I'm talking about is, with clarity comes mastery. And what I'm saying is not about your visions and your vision and your goals and your rocks. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a very simple concept. What does business mean to you personally? Mm-hmm. Why are you doing it? And it's like a tool in your toolbox. What is it serving you?
Yep.
Does it make sense? It's a personal journey for an entrepreneur and an owner. And I'm not talking about the mission and the vision you put up on your hallways and all. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these three things. Okay. What does it mean to you? Why are you doing it? And what purpose do you want it to serve in your life? Mm-hmm. And what I find is people that have a very clear definition of it have mastered this, one of the 5 things that I will talk about today. They're on their way to mastering the game, correct? So if they know this is exactly what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, and this is how I want it to affect my life. Yep. Okay, they're starting with a huge advantage. Yep. Of mastering the game, right? So that's really what it is. And I would encourage everybody to sit there and think about it. I did it. I did this about 4 years ago on an exercise. I was running 4 companies at that point. And a life coach of mine, a good friend of mine, asked me to do this. She said, okay, do me a favor. She said, imagine you're 95 on a weekend and write and I won't give up my age, so I'm going to lie right now. Okay. Right. So imagine you're writing a letter to your 45-year-old self. And what would you say? That would be the way for you to start analyzing this.
I have thought personally, which is so morbid, like, what would I hope people said in my obituary? There's every once in a while you see those obituaries that make headlines where somebody was like brutally honest about how that person was. And like, that's such a morbid way to look at it, but it is true. I mean, if you're absorbed in your company, what is your obituary going to say?
Correct.
Loving wife, loving husband, or totally devoted to work and money? I don't
Yes.
know.
So with clarity comes mastery. That is the first step, is you really got to understand. And it doesn't matter. For some people, maybe it's 500 million. For some people, maybe it's 50,000. It doesn't matter what it is. There's no judgment there. What I'm saying is absolutely knowing what it serves in your life. It's like a tool in your toolbox. If you know exactly what it's meant to do for you, you'll use it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what it's meant to do for you, you'll use it for everything, like I do. With tools.
Tools.
So that's
Okay.
where you start. That is the number one rule of starting to gain mastery over your business.
Okay, so talking about these tools, I think the first thing that maybe owners need to recognize is they have to learn to honor their own time and be able to prioritize and let go of things and whatnot. So that comes with maybe creating some efficiencies, things like that. What does it look like for an owner to start honoring their time? What are the first steps toward that?
So maintaining control is really interesting, correct? And we all like me included. Okay, I mean there are weeks where I feel like the wheels are going to come off like any minute, right? I mean, like any minute, it's coming off, right? And so I know a lot of people who are watching, they're familiar with that feeling, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
there's a lot to do. So if you process your business out and document it, it honors your time a little bit to where people are not coming to you repeatedly for the same problems, right? So the idea there is you never solve the same problem twice, correct? So you have to systemize to be efficient as possible, right? So you look at your business, you say, okay, what are things that people can do? How do I systemize it from start to finish? So I think the more you systemize it, the better. And one of the things that I found is entrepreneurs that are, in my opinion, that have mastered the game and they call us without a lot of regrets. Hey, it's beautiful. It's a blessing in my life. You know, they're very results driven as opposed to activity driven.
yeah.
Okay, so they have results for their team, for their management, for the production manager, the office manager, collections, marketing, you know, all the stuff that we all have in restoration. And they are extremely results driven, okay, as opposed to activity driven. So I've been doing this personally, you know, in the beginning of this year, I used to have checklists and I got away from checklists. I don't do checklists anymore. Every Friday, I look at what results I want to achieve the following week.
Okay.
So we find that it's a huge difference between entrepreneurs that I feel have mastered the game of business and ones that are probably working more than they should. You know, is they're very results driven.
Okay. Okay, so results driven, that means that there's processes, right? Is it possible to create a process for every single thing in your business? Like, are there more important processes than others? I know we're not solving the same problem twice. Once you have a bigger team, how does that trickle throughout the entire team so you're not repeating, like getting on a cycle of madness?
Yeah, so we did, I'll explain to you. We did it in our own firm. Okay, so we did our KPIs for every our performance indicators, kind of like dials in your car, right? We just did that. We launched it 30 days ago or so, and we basically had everyone buy into it. And every meeting we start with KPIs, and those are the results. And there's no yellow. It either goes green or it goes red. Does it make sense? So every, and then what I did was every KPI and every result that you want to achieve only has one person responsible for it. That means it cannot be shared.
Okay.
We can collaborate with a team member, etc., but one person absolutely in charge of it, and it's really making a difference at our firm. And I think people that are listening, it would make a huge difference. You just think about, you know, and I wouldn't do a lot, maybe 5 to 6 KPIs, and you start every meeting with it. I think that's really helpful in getting to what I call a results-driven organization, and especially for the owners of the company, where they now have dials in their business and they're not activity-driven. As long as you're activity-driven, you're going to be henpecked all day long, every day. If you're results-driven, you're going to get a little bit of relief from all of that, if you know what I mean. So you could go to a baseball game, you could go to a hockey game and know things are green and you're working on the reds. And okay, that gives you the peace of mind. And you can say, okay, now I can disconnect and pay to other parts of my life, right?
It makes me nervous that there's not a yellow. I like a flashing yellow warning light before I'm in the red. Like,
No, that's not the game.
total
The game
fail.
is either red or it's either green.
Okay. All right. So what are
I live in Florida, but there's no fixing to get ready. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're either going to lace up or you're not going to lace up. I mean, that's what KPIs are. And what that does is really frees up your time, and it honors it. Because as an owner, you need to make sure your dials and your KPIs are green. That's your job.
Do you have any KPIs that you think restoration companies should specifically focus on? I know it's different with different industries, but some that you see are especially looked at maybe in the M&A world as well.
Yeah, absolutely they are. So obviously, you got revenue goals that you got to hit, right? They're KPIs, right? So you break them down quarterly and monthly, right? Margin goals are KPIs, right? Am I hitting the margins that I want to hit? Turnover goals could be a KPI, correct? Employee satisfaction could be a KPI, and customer satisfaction. So at a minimum, those are your 5.
Yep.
And then AR would be one. If I was running one today, I would never want AR to be above certain amount of revenue. Does it make sense? Usually, I like AR to be around 10 to about 15% of revenue, never more than that. If you're more than that, you're in trouble. You got cash flow problems. So to me, those are the 6 that I would absolutely use all the time.
Okay. All right. So how can having KPIs and processes in place help when it is time to exit?
Oh, it's very simple, because now you've got dials in your car, you got dials in your machine,
Hopefully all on green, not on red, since there's no middle.
And yeah, I mean, businesses with KPIs are absolutely run smoother than businesses without KPIs. Absolutely. We see it all the time. It increases valuation. They're run smoother. They're more profitable. They're clicking on all cylinders. If there's one place I would start, these are all important, but beyond clarity of what business means to you, KPIs would be absolutely the second place I would go to.
Okay.
It's absolutely transformed what I do even in my company.
So you had this quote that I really liked in the report, I think, that you're coming out with. And so I'm a little curious for you to dive into it a little bit. You said, if you're running your business as your job, you will not reach the next level.
Yeah. So there's the third one, the third law, right, of mastering the game is what I call it, right, is changing your mindset.
Yep.
Correct. So we talk to owners all over the country, and we see a very, very, very clear difference, right? People that run their business as a job call us because they're burnt out and they want to sell their business. Okay, absolutely, they're burnt out. Okay, they spent too much time at work. They've missed out on family. The health is suffering. There's consequences to that, if you know what I'm saying, and it's a domino effect, right?
Yep.
So running it as a job, like, man, I just want a job. I want my little business, and whatever these looks like, that's okay. It's not how big or small a business is. It's the mindset of, I just want to pay my bills, and we've been paying our bills and everything's okay. Those are code words for me saying that entrepreneur's mindset is, I want a job. I just don't want to work for anyone. I want to create my own job.
Yeah.
And then you look at the other end of the spectrum, right? In the middle of the spectrum, you look at entrepreneurs that are like, I want a 10-person team. I want a $2 million, $3 million revenue business. I don't want to go above it or below it. So there you got they're moving into the next level of maturity, right? And then you got the ultimate with people. They're looking at their business as just an investment, an asset. So they're looking at it as, hey, can this business, with all its processes that come input and output, can it sustain without me or with very little involvement? And can it produce cash?
Yeah.
Right? So changing your mindset from, I just want a job, to looking at your business as an investment.
Yes.
Right? And answering the question, one of the easiest way to do it is to say, would I buy my own business? It's a very simple question, but it'll get to the heart of whether you're looking at it as a W-2 and you're looking at it as, I want a job, or you're looking at it as an investment. Yes. Right? So entrepreneurs that call us that have the investor mindset, their business are very, very healthy, because it puts them in a completely different path.
Okay.
Doesn't mean, they're doing all the things that they need to be doing.
So with the healthy businesses that you see in your world, what level of involvement does the owner actually have in most of those super healthy businesses?
Very little. Very little.
Okay, so
2 days a week is what they're working. The pinnacle of it. Okay, they're there Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesdays. That kind of stuff. They're looking at their KPIs. They're looking at their dials, and they're just making sure everybody's green. They got a person responsible for each one of those dials to make sure that it's green and it's communicated. But they're supporting them, correct? And it's different than delegating. What we find, delegating is kind of like, hey, I'm going to give it to you, and then if you don't do it, I'm going to get really mad at you. No, that's not the game. That's not the game. You know what I mean? It's not that simple, right? It's collaborating and saying, hey, you're in charge of this, but I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to coach you. I'm going to give you the skills. I'm going to up your skills so you can meet this goal. That is the way you want to do it, right? That's where we see a huge difference. And companies that can run without an entrepreneur are the ones that command the highest price in the marketplace, hands down, right? And companies that cannot run without the entrepreneur cannot be sold. So there are your two extremes.
So how does an owner find that balance? When you go into, whenever you start a business, you're not starting out of the gate working 2 or 3 days a week. You're starting at that 80 hours, right? Yeah. So that's a huge mindset shift. And I think maybe you felt it that way. I know that I've felt this way, and other owners feel the guilt of stepping out. Like, I don't want my team to look at me as I'm working 2 to 3 days a week and going about my life and living my life. Like, how do you find that balance as an owner? I think it comes maybe from respect from your team and the team that you've built, and it's okay, but that's an interesting balance to find, where it's like, no, I've built this company and you have I get to. I don't know.
It's a really interesting question. And I'm going to say this with a lot of respect, and I would say this to myself if I was looking in the mirror, but I think sometimes we just need to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. And excellence in teams and peak performance in companies, from what I see, doesn't happen with you as an entrepreneur working on 100 different problems, trying to solve everything in your business. It comes from your team working on one single problem and solving it permanently and becoming really good at it.
Yeah.
It's the other way around.
Yep.
That you know what I mean? And it's not about guilt. It's about, if you are truly the CEO of the company, you are going to get to make fewer decisions every week and every month, but they're going to have incredible impact. So you are doing a huge disservice if you become an operator in your business and you're not the thinker and the strategic and bringing the sales in and making sure that what I call for my team, I always tell them this at every meeting, hey, we got to dig a moat and build a castle. I mean, that's your job. For your business. And if you're not doing that, you're doing a huge disservice to your team. And sometimes you got to step back and you need time to think about it. You need time to talk to other entrepreneurs. You need time to go to other industries and borrow best practices. Mm-hmm. So your job, in my opinion, is to dig a moat and build a castle.
Dig a moat and build a castle.
That's the job.
Sounds like a lot of work going both directions.
Yeah, and that's the problem with it. We're all activity driven, and we're sold this concept that busyness, as an entrepreneur, you have to be busy all the time, and that's the furthest from the truth. Yeah. What we see in the marketplace is, people that are working, your technicians, and they're getting paid, and their job is to do a lot of little activities in a day. Mm-hmm. Right? Then maybe your collections and your office person, their job is to make micro decisions, a lot of them during the day. But as you get higher and higher level, your job is to make fewer decisions, but to make the right ones. So your activity level is going to go down, but every decision's impact is going to increase exponentially. So if you're not building a moat, digging a moat and building a castle, you're affecting every single person in your team.
I like
so that's the
like
mindset shift.
Yes.
You know what? That is the mindset shift.
That's an interesting way of putting it. If you're making fewer decisions higher up, but they do matter more, you got to make them right once you're at the top. So how many?
Yes. So if a CEO has a team of 30 people and they make one wrong decision, it affects 30 people and all of their lives. If a technician makes one wrong decision, it affects one job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they should, but or whoever in your team. So it's a huge responsibility, and that's the CEO role. That's the change of the mindset shift, right?
So, sorry, go ahead.
So that's what I see with the mindset. The companies that are the healthiest restoration companies that call us, the owners and the CEOs, they're playing that true CEO role. Their only job is to dig a moat and build a castle.
So how do you help owners define or figure out whether they're really actually burned out, or this is a tough stretch that you've been through, and most businesses go through that? Business is an ebb and flow game, right? It's not always up, 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 up. It's not always good. And I think even the most passionate business owner who loves what they do is going to go through phases where they're like, I can't even look at this for a while. I can't. So where is that divide between like you're burned out and there are symptoms of like true burnout versus, all right, this is proof that you need to do better at stepping back and not working in your company, working on your company?
Burnout happens for a lot of different reasons. If you're doing the wrong job in your company, you're going to get burnt out.
Yeah.
It's going to affect your business. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. So burnout is just a signal. It's not a rejection. It's a redirection. Of what you need to be doing. Right. That's really what it is. But if people do it for long periods of time, then it becomes really difficult to get out of it. And athletes call it, I'm in a rut. The team is in a rut. They call it. Those are all precursors of burning out. And people know it in their hearts when they're burnt out. It's a struggle to get up and go to work. It's really that simple.
So what are some of the red flags that you see for owners when it comes to, all right, we're edging down the path, like we're getting closer to being burned out, and there's these red flags going off on the path? What are some of the red flags that you see?
Oh, there's so many red flags, but here's the number one red flag that I see with burnt out owners. The staff want to grow their business and they don't want to grow it. Mm. If you want to stay the same, you're probably burnt out.
Yeah.
If you're not excited in a state, where you're talking more negative things, I have owners that'll call me and say, I wish I had a business with no employees. That's burnout. It's an extreme statement. You know what I'm saying? They're just frustrated. That's all. Or they say, it's not what it used to be 30 years ago. Okay, that's burnout.
Or not adapting to the times and understanding that the workplace is different. And I can get that. I know people that have owned businesses, and now with all the generation changes and then through the pandemic and how much the world has changed, that can be a lot to adapt to if you're not prepared to make that level of adaptation.
And that's where I want to talk about the mastery of the game, right? Is the business mastering you? If the business is mastering you, then it's going to lead you to burnout. It's going to chew you up and spit you out, no matter what business you're running. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you're an owner, you got to master the game. You got to do it. Otherwise, you have consequences for it.
All right. So bringing it all together, what are some resources that you have personally been reading for your business, or that you would recommend to others? Favorite books, podcasts, all the leadership things, your favorites?
Oh my gosh. So there's a website, and she's my executive coach too, called Mary Tomlinson. It's called On Purpose Consulting. That's kind of where I go to try to get a lot of balance. I think people can start there. Another really simple exercise you could do is, if you're burnt out, is really figure out what your perfect week looks like. I did that in the beginning of the year as part of my planning. I figured out what my ideal week looks like. Am I working Fridays off? Am I going to my kids? They do go-kart racing and gymnastics and tennis. Am I going to their events, but then I'm going to work at night that night, or I'm going to start a little bit early? What does my perfect week look like?
Yep.
Right? And then I wrote what my job description looks like, which is highest and best use. We find that a lot with owners that have created great restoration companies and they're not burnt out, they've mastered the game. One of the things they've absolutely mastered is highest and best use. In the sense, they do what they're most talented at, and they don't do anything that one of their team members can do.
Don't do anything that one of their team members can do.
Yes, they're absolutely aware of that. Absolutely, hands down. Every company that we've talked about, we've talked to owners that are healthy, where the business is a blessing in their life, is very, very good at highest and best use.
Okay.
Right? So that's what I do. Like I write my own job description. What am I really good at that nobody in the team can do? Right? Like I got to do these podcasts. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, right? I mean,
Yep.
My brokers can't do it. So there's certain things that only I can do, right? And I got to do as part of my role in the business. So I make a list of all of that. That's my job description. And then what I did is I planned out what my perfect week would look like. I don't get there every week, but if I can achieve it 70, 75% of the time,
it's pretty good.
It's really, really successful.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep.
Those are the two things I would do. And then the third thing I would do is a very simple exercise. Just get a piece of paper and just say, I want to go from blank to blank. And that gives you pretty much a business plan on how you want to go forward.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just saying, listen, I don't think any of us wants to get to 65, 70 and be absolutely burnt out with a lot of regrets, right? And I think it's time that us entrepreneurs look at business as a blessing and make it a blessing and understand the rules of the game and get really good at it. I think it helps us in so many ways. I'm going through that. I know you're going through that. All of us are going through it. And I thought it would be good for us to bring it out in the open and start talking about it.
I agree. I have a few things now that I'm like, okay, I can change that. And I don't need to be doing that. And okay. All right. You got me thinking. So I appreciate it. Gokul, it is always a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks again for having me.
For more Restoration Today, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, or find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts.